Hello, and welcome to Never Is Funny, the show where I talk to funny people and hope to God they talk back. Now, this episode, I'm speaking to stand-up comedian Yola. Her show is called Help, My Vagina's Trying to Kill Me, which is A, fantastic title, and B, describes exactly what it says on the tin. The tin of Yola. I really enjoyed this episode. Yola is so open and passionate and covers some really important things. However, I think it's probably worth including a trigger warning in this episode, as well as the usual billion other things. We do mention suicide, and we talk a bit about her experience with a miscarriage. Just wanted to be safe. Plus, it lets me filter out all the people who start crying and shitting themselves when they hear the words trigger warning because they think the woke left is coming for podcasts. Yeah? Well, the woke me is coming for your mother. Right. On with the show.
Welcome back to the show, where I talk to comedians in the know. That's right. It's Never As Funny. It's Never As Funny. The show is called Never As Funny. It's the name of the show, by the way. Never As Funny. That's the gist of it. The name. The show's called Never. This is like the title music. It's called Never As Funny. All right.
Welcome back to Never Is Funny, everyone. This is a slightly discombobulated start because we got about half an hour in before I realized by taking the credit, you were the one who actually spotted that we weren't recording, which is really good of you. But yes, as well as said in the introduction, my guest this week is the comedian and actress and writer Yola, who once, and I'm so sorry to make you briefly retell this, well, not once, you still have it, that's the nature of tattoos, have a tattoo of the brand, defunct car brand, Saab, on your arm.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit more about that.
I'm sorry, man.
No, I think it was like 5 years ago. I was in, I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, and...
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Me too, actually.
Wait, what?
Near Seattle, yeah. I didn't mention, so I was born in the UK, but from like age 5 to 13, I lived near Seattle.
Oh my gosh, I grew up in Redmond, so...
No way!
Yeah.
I was so close. I was in Sammamish most of the time.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so crazy. Yeah. No, I grew up in Redmond. During the pandemic, I went back to live with my parents for a few months and everything. And then when I came back to Austin, I was just hanging out with some people. It was during the time of the NBA finals.
Right.
And I don't even watch the NBA. I don't watch sports or anything. And I just thought it was fun. It was like a fun bet. And I was just like, it's a 50-50 chance of winning. But the loser had to get a tattoo of a specific car logo on somewhere on our bodies.
Where did this come from? Like, are you guys all into cars? Like, what?
No, absolutely not. So his last name is Savarino. And so
Okay.
if I lost, I had to get the Saab car logo, but have it say Sav.
Ah, I see.
Like Savarino. And then, so that's what it looks like over here. And then if he lost, he would have had to get the Toyota logo, but have it say Toyola instead. And then, so it was just, I think he came up with the Toyola thing first and then was just like, yeah, that's a great thing. And I think I wanted him to lose so bad because I wanted somebody to get the Toyota logo so bad on them. And I ended up losing, so I had to get the Saab car logo tattooed on me, which I don't even think they produce any cars anymore. So, yeah.
You can't even get a sponsorship out of it. That's a tragedy.
I know. It would be crazy. I feel like I'm trying to think of like if I have other tattoos that would give me anything. My ex-husband actually used to have a logo of a local bar tattooed on him. And he thought he was going to get like free drinks or something for like the rest of his life.
Did they tell him that, or was this just a gamble?
No, I think he just thought he was going to, but it was literally just like, hey, do you want a free tattoo of this, like of the logo of this local Austin bar. And that was it. And then it was just happened to be free, but you got nothing out of it. So it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I've never met anyone who specifically has like logo tattoos before. So it's fascinating to me that you and a friend and an ex-husband are all collecting them.
I've had a few other tattoos designed for me before, and one of them was the Taco Bell sauce packet, because I am obsessed with Taco Bell, and so I was like thinking of doing something like that too, and everybody was just like, you know what, why don't you take a beat, like don't do it right away. And I'm just like, I thought about this for a long time. I paid somebody to design this. He gave this to me weeks later, and I still want it. But people were just like, don't do it. But I'm trying not to get any more tattoos because it just makes acting a little bit harder if I get upset, and then I have to they have to cover up all my tattoos and everything depending on what I'm wearing. And it just makes it so I have to wear like quarter sleeves or something all the time if I'm like upset. So I'm trying not to do any more like visible tattoos, and also because my mom begged me not to get any more. So it's like, okay, fine.
So no facial Taco Bell sauce packet tattoo for now.
No, definitely no facial tattoos. I don't even get any tattoos below my elbows, just because for some reason when like casting directors ask for like photos, like they'll ask for your hands to see if you have any tattoos, and they specifically ask if you had tattoos below the elbows. And then I've always just been like, oh, I could say no because I don't have any hand tattoos or anything like that. So I try to be very careful about like placement of my tattoos and stuff. So
I'm glad you put me on that. I've got 2 so far. I would like to get more at some point, and they're both wrist ones, so nice. To hop on that train. But anyway, so that's our little tattoo podcast. But speaking of actually you, what is your... I got excited about this word actually, because so for people listening, mentioned I screwed up, forgot to record, so we did like half an hour of talking, which is great to do over because it means that I get to sound a lot more professional and put together in terms of how we do it. And B, I was like, oh, instead of just asking what kind of stuff do you do, I should ask you what your Uber is, which is, I don't know, it's a good word. And I'm not sure I'm using it right.
Your Uber?
Your Uber.
I don't think I've heard.
I think it's a French word.
Oh, I wouldn't know because I'm kind of dumb. And I've never.
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure I'm using it right. But your, like, shebang, sort of like, what's your makeup?
Okay, yeah, like my shtick or something.
Yeah, shtick. I like that.
Yeah. I would say my style of comedy has always been like very personal.
Right.
And very much about my own personal experiences. And the reason for that is when I first started doing comedy, which was about 13 years ago in Seattle, I was doing more observational humor. And I remember doing a joke that I had completely written by myself, but another more seasoned comedian came up to me and was like, I just want you to know that joke has been done so many times, so many different versions of it and stuff. And a really original premise and stuff. And after hearing that, I was just like, okay, then I have to, really dig into my own personal experiences so that nobody else could have the exact same kind of premise. I mean, there are still people that have like some of these like same lived experiences, but it's a little bit more rare, I guess. And I haven't had anybody come up to me and say that like I have a similar joke to somebody ever again.
Right.
But I also do that because I'm also pretty self-deprecating, I would say, just because I grew up with very low self-confidence and didn't really find my voice to speak up for myself and speak up for myself until I got a little bit older. So, and I also never wanted to punch down when doing my jokes. So I don't want to, there is like a new group of comedians that are kind of these like anti-woke comedians that have all moved to Austin because they were probably too offensive for their original cities. And they just have some of the worst takes on jokes and just like really make fun of certain groups of people for their sexuality, for their upbringing, using the N-word when they're not Black.
Christ.
And, yeah. And I've seen like videos of it, and then I'll read the comments, and people are like, "I'm so glad comedy's back."
Oh my God, I know. It's
just like things like that, and that just like really upset me. So I make sure that my comedy doesn't ever punch down and doesn't ever make a group of people feel bad about themselves, because I want everybody to be able to actually enjoy my comedy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I will say probably, honestly, in the last probably 3 years, I started being very much like my authentic self on stage and just like being me.
Okay.
And kind of sharing more of my real personal experiences, because, you know, I started talking openly about my miscarriage that I had, and like wrote a whole experience talking about that. And I, you know, also just like talking about my upbringing and kind of the, I guess, I don't like using the word abuse, but it's, people have described it as like, oh, you were very much abused as a child. But I didn't personally think of it as that, just because in Asian culture, it is like, we have a pretty big like spanking,
right,
physical punishment type of culture, because that's all my parents knew.
Yeah.
And I was the oldest child growing up, so I got the brunt of it. And I never actually held it against them. I've like forgiven them for this, because I know that they didn't know any better. And they are like, now that I'm older, like really good parents, and have been very supportive of, you know, even me trying to do all of this. Like, I mean, they hate the fact that I'm doing a show that has the word vagina in the title and everything, but they're, you know, still supportive.
Yeah.
As much as they can be, which is kind of rare for like immigrant parents, honestly.
Right.
Because a lot of the times, you know, they want you to be doing stuff like, I want you to go after like a really stable career and not after something like this. But I kind of got around that because I also work in IT during the daytime.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I don't do this full time because it does not pay the bills.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I have like a pretty like good job in an IT company, in a big IT company. And I have like a pretty prominent role there as well, and have really climbed the ladder and established myself in this like IT role, even though it's, you know, not what I'm wanting to do. I think it makes my parents less stressed out that I at least have a way of making income, and I kind of have like a fallback plan.
Yeah.
In case this like comedy thing doesn't work, or I don't want to do it anymore, then at least like I don't have this gap in my resume. Like I have like the work experience and everything through that. But I do feel like a lot of my friends that I started with, the ones that quit their jobs and kind of just went all in on comedy as quickly as they could, have really risen the ranks and everything, and are able to do this full time, buy houses, like being comedians and stuff in Los Angeles. And it's just like a huge, you know, and so sometimes I do wonder, like, would I have done better if I just, you know, leapt all the way in? But I am trying to go for something like that in the next like few years, to actually just like jump fully in and try to see if I could tour and make money doing tours and going to colleges and stuff. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, that's for any comedian, unless you're lucky enough to come from an extremely wealthy background.
Yeah,
that's always the thing. I mean, I was thinking as you're saying that my mom's gonna love this episode. She's gonna hear it and immediately go like, see, this is a real comedian, they've got a real job, you see, so you should prioritize that also.
No, I'm sorry.
But no, that's great. I mean, how have you found balancing the two? Because I mean, even I know a lot of communities who've done even just various like part-time work, balancing that with, you know, like working retail or whatever, and that's tough. So what is it like working for lack of a better word, real job, and balancing that with doing shows and acting? And
yeah, no, absolutely. I will say I've been with this large tech company for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And I have stuck with it for a long time, even though sometimes I'm just like, maybe I should leave to go try to get more money somewhere else or something like that. But I haven't, because they are so flexible with my schedule.
Right.
Like, you know, this is literally around like 2 p.m. during the workday right now. But, you know, they really don't care as long as I can get my work done. And like, I'm able to go to the Fringe this year, and because I've been there for 10 years, I have a ton of vacation time, and I am able to I'm basically maxing out all my vacation time for the Fringe.
Right.
And then they're allowing me to work like a week doing EMEA hours and stuff like that while I'm there. So I'm super grateful for that I like am still getting paid while I'm going to be at the Fringe too. Yeah. And so I could still, you know, pay my rent and everything, and I'm not missing out on anything either. If I get booked on a film shoot or something, I just use my vacation time and I'm off to film. Same with like auditions, especially because a lot of auditions have been self-tapes and everything, so I could do it in my own time. Yeah, so, but I would say like the balance is honestly very hard. I'm not gonna lie, especially when the daytime job gets really busy. Right. And I am not able to, and I have like rehearsals sometimes like during the day or whatever, then what it means is that like after I get home from rehearsals and like maybe doing shows or something, I have to log back onto my computer and finish work that I didn't get to do. So sometimes I'm up till like 2 or 3 a.m. because I need to finish. I need to like make up the hours for all the stuff that I missed. And it's honestly exhausting, and I don't know how I am able to do it, to be honest, sometimes. And it is really hard to find, like, if you have a very strict schedule and you don't have the flexibility that I do, I do think it is very hard to have some sort of balance. And I also did, middle of last year and early this year, I was working a second job. Right. On top of my tech job, I got a job at a fried chicken restaurant and was doing that part-time because I made a movie last year that cost me $50,000 to do. Right. Yeah. And I had to take out loans for it and everything. And I was kind of just, I didn't make very good financial decisions, and I was just like drowning in loans, and I didn't know how I was going to pay like my rent or some of my bills. Yeah. Some of the time, and I just really needed like an extra boost. So I went on Craigslist, and it was the first listing I saw. I actually am a full vegetarian, never had chicken in my life, but I've heard of this like really popular fried chicken restaurant, and I just assumed that there was going to be a lot of things.
I thought you were going to say, but I've heard of chicken.
That would have been crazy. Yeah, I've heard of chicken of one time. Is it a legend? No, but yeah, so it was really interesting. I remember like when I just started the job, I was like asking people, I was like, a drumstick is like a leg, right? And stuff, like asking these questions, and people were like, yeah. Because I was too afraid to tell anybody there that I was a vegetarian because I was afraid they would fire me.
Right, you're undercover.
So, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so I know, right? And so I would just like listen to what my coworkers were saying, like when people would ask like, oh, is the dark meat or the white meat better? And then I would hear people be like, oh, the dark meat's usually a little more flavorful and juicier. And like, and like, I didn't know anything about like chicken parts and stuff, but I learned that the thigh is really popular. And so I was just like, yeah, the thigh is what I would recommend. And so I was just kind of regurgitating everything that I heard from like all of my coworkers
Yeah.
and stuff, and then pretending that I was this like chicken expert. And, so it was, yeah, but that was very hard to do because I like basically worked from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at my day job.
Yeah.
And then from 3:30 p.m. till 10 p.m. I was working at my second job, and I was doing this probably about 4 or 5 times a week. And then it was so hard to be able to like, I had to say no to like doing shows because I was scheduled for shifts and stuff. It wasn't like, I will say I liked the scheduling for the chicken place because I could just like put in like a request to be off a certain day, and then my manager would find somebody to fill me in on. But that's not the case for a lot of other places, you know, like you either have to find a backfill for you, or if they don't let you like take the time off, and you just have to quit. And I had to do that for some jobs too. And it was, some places are just not flexible. So I feel like I'm super lucky that I have like a very flexible job, but it is hard to find a balance because, you know, sometimes you're also super tired from working like a long day, and then you want to like rehearse your material, or you want to write new material or work on something, and there's just like not enough time and mental energy to even do it. So yeah, so that's kind of my experience of like balance. But I also know that my case is not the same as like everybody's situation. So yeah,
definitely we said about mental energy as well, especially with just going on stage. I mean, if you've got like buffer days either side, obviously it's a ton of energy to walk on stage as a stand-up or performer or anything and just go into it. Right. Because you have to be, a lot of the times, like you have to be in a good mood, or that's where also kind of having like the acting training comes in handy, because you kind of force yourself to pull it together and be a certain way for some of these shows. And that does help. But there are, you know, days that I'm just like so mentally tired. I am so overwhelmed and feeling so sad and stuff that I'm just like, I can't even get myself up on stage. Like I physically cannot do it. And I always end up doing it because I'm always too afraid to cancel shows last minute and stuff. And especially if I've agreed to do something, if I say I'm going to do something, I will be there, is my thing. Yeah. And so it makes it very hard, to be honest. Yeah, especially because it's a very like the whole comedy industry, or really creative industry, I guess in general, is very like, it's a real culture of you go every night, and it doesn't matter if you're ill or tired or depressed, you go out and you go on stage, and if you don't do that, you're not giving enough, and everyone else is.
Yes.
Which is it's not good. Hot take.
No.
But what is your like? So we're coming up to the middle section ish now, so I'll go more into detail on your show after that. But in general, what is your like persona like when it comes to stand up? Because you mentioned you've evolved especially to open up and become much more yourself.
Yeah.
Do you step into that when you go on stage, or is it just you?
I think it's just me. I think when I first started comedy, I was trying to build a persona for myself, which was kind of this, like, I was pretty dirty when I started also. And then, so I was trying, and somebody I think gave me this like suggestion of like, oh, people don't expect you to be dirty because you look like this very like well-kept girl and from the suburbs and everything. And they don't expect these things to come out of your mouth. So I started like really leaning into that, like wearing cardigans and like really sweet dresses on stage and stuff like that. And then I got really sick of it because I was just like, this isn't really me. And then so I don't really do that anymore. I kind of wear whatever I like. I try to look put together on stage. Like I never wear like sweatpants or anything like that. But I would say like people might think that my persona is maybe like I'm a very oversharing friend of
Right.
yours that like shares too many personal details, because that is a lot of my stand up. And
Right.
I would also say that people have described it as being some of my stuff being pretty dark,
Yeah.
especially also when I like started. I don't think my stuff is as dark anymore, but there are still like a few darker bits in there. But I think I've been, and I also talk a lot about like my dating history and my dating life, because I feel like I've been mostly dating for a while, but I try to do like more interesting takes on it rather than, oh, you guys use Tinder and like, stuff like that. And so I try to have like more of a unique take, even if I'm talking about something that is so like overused in stand up and stuff, like using the dating apps and everything. And so I think I'm kind of like an dark oversharer in a way. So
That's great. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, personally, that's the type of comedy I think I lean towards more. Partly because I think I'm a similar person in real life. So
yeah.
I think I have quite a like high threshold, I guess, for like I don't. It's unlikely that I'll be sitting watching a show and kind of sniffing and being, it's a little too much for me. So yeah, definitely excited to see yours, which we will talk about. So this is a proper segue. I haven't really done this. After the break and during the break, I'm going to use a song of your choice.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if this is like appropriate for the show, but one of the opening songs that I'm doing for my show is Aquafina's My Vag.
Brilliant.
Which I feel like it goes very well with the theme of my show, because it's a song about vaginas. And
Yeah.
so you could either do that one, or the song that I'm actually ending on is Dog Days Are Over by Florence and the Machine.
Oh, yeah. That's brilliant.
Because at the end of my show, there's this kind of a new rejuvenation of hope, I feel like. And I feel like that song is very hopeful and very upbeat and uplifting and stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
probably like those two songs, or honestly anything from Chapel Rowan, because I've been obsessed with her lately. So honestly, anything like California or Casual works for me and stuff. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so here comes that. I'll take my pick of the ones you suggested.
Yeah.
And then, we'll be back to discuss more in detail your show.
Awesome.
Hello, and welcome to the middle section of the show. So, Yola has chosen the song My Vag, which I'm cool with, because, well, I don't have a vagina. I mean, no, I wouldn't mind having a vagina. They seem cool as hell. All right? You ever looked at a vagina? I mean, you're listening to this podcast, so probably not, but trust me, okay, they are pretty cool. All, like, detailed and shit. They kind of look like a corridor, right? In a really nicely designed postmodern house. But, like, a very small house, I guess, because they're not corridor sized. Like a house for those little people in Gulliver's Travels. Wait, hang on, that's like a fetish. Giant vagina. This is not a show for that. What is this? Never is giantess king? I mean, okay, you can listen. If you're into that, that's fine. But I didn't make the show for you specifically, but you can listen. You do you. Go ahead and climb that beanstalk, Jack. Find the magic bean. Oh my god. Okay, right. My Vag by Aquafina, and I'm gonna deliver it. But Yola, it does stand up. And like I have been proving it with every episode, I can do whatever any of my guests can. So I'm going to deliver the song, but with little pieces of brand new stand-up bits from me spliced in. The thing is, I kind of talked for too long about postmodern vagina houses for miniature homunculi, so I'll have to cut it down a bit, and I'll just see how far into the song we get, and then I'll cut it off. My vag, like an operatic ballad, Hi, welcome to my stand-up set. I'm Patrick. Right. Yeah, I mean, you know when like your veg like grandpa's cabbage. Sorry, I'm just nervous. I haven't done stand up that long. I mean, I've done it before, but not that many times. But like, when you're at the store, you know. I mean, no, not the store, but like, and my veg, effortless. A grocery store specifically, and they sell. Sometimes they have like like reduced items. Actually, they do have reduced items at like other stores, but I mean, your veg posts ads on Craigslist. Like, why would you buy a reduced item? I want to buy the regular sized item. Yeah. My veg squirt aloe vera.
So, yeah, welcome back, everybody. Help! My vagina's trying to kill me. That's the name of your show, Yola. In case you didn't know. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what's it about? Like, if you were... Actually, that's an interesting question before I ask the actual question. With flyering and stuff at Fringe, how is that working? Are you doing that yourself? Or are you going to be on the street?
I'm going to be out on the street for hours every day, flyering myself. I am actually still trying to figure out like how I want to like pitch my show, like what to use as an elevator pitch for this. So I actually have no idea so far. I bought a lot of like freebie stuff. Like I got like customized stickers and customized pens.
Oh, right.
And also I bought 1,000 condoms and put stickers on all of them with my show title on. And I also got coasters with like a drawn on vagina on all of the coasters and everything. So I was thinking I would like pass out the stuff and then kind of start talking a little bit about my show. But my show is really about... It's really about women's health, but that sounds kind of boring when I say it like that. But so it's basically about, it comes in 3 parts. It's about all of my experiences of these times with my vagina. So the first thing is actually about a herpes diagnosis that I got about 10 years ago. And it was through, we don't have to get into like details about it, but it was through like a person I was dating and just happened to be cheating on me the entire relationship and just like brought stuff back home, type of thing. And then so that was fun. And it's not like herpes kills you, but the stigma of it like is so painful and so much that I was 22 years old when I got herpes.
Right.
And I remember like being so depressed and thinking that nobody was ever going to love me. Nobody was ever going to want to date me again. And I felt like my life was over because I was young and I didn't really have like any other like these goals and things to like look forward to, because all you're kind of taught at kind of a young age is like, you know, you have to find your partner and then you like get married, have a house, have kids and all that. And it was just like at the time that was something that was like going to be so out of my reach. And so I did have a plan of killing myself at the time and almost completely went through with it. And so I have like a joke about that in there. So that's kind of like the first part of like why I feel like my vagina tried to kill me.
Oh, right. Like literally, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then so that was like part 1. And it also kind of explores the reasoning of why I dated such a shitty dude to begin with and stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of goes deep into my past and my upbringing and stuff of like kind of trying to psychoanalyze myself of why I maybe allowed myself to be in such a bad relationship with some guy. And the second thing was I did eventually meet like other people, and I did eventually like get married and everything. Like he didn't care about the herpes. He didn't care about like all the stuff that I had gone through. And I ended up getting pregnant, but ended up having a miscarriage after the first trimester.
Right.
It was actually kind of not funny. It's just the timing was funny because it was literally on the first day of the second trimester. And people tell you not to announce your pregnancy until the second trimester because the chances of having a miscarriage or whatever are very high during the first trimester. And then so we had just hit the first day of the second trimester, and that was the day we were actually going to announce the pregnancy publicly, like on social media. And then that morning I had the miscarriage, and people don't talk about like what a miscarriage is actually like. And because I always thought it was kind of like, oh, you find out you got your period and then you're just like, oh no, I lost the baby and stuff. I thought it was just something like that. But it was, your body is literally going through labor and expelling everything in you prematurely, basically. So I didn't realize that that was the amount of pain that I was going to go through. And it was probably one of the most physically painful experiences I've ever had. And it was also very traumatic, going through that, because just also not understanding what a miscarriage was actually going to be like really sucked. And I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes I do worry about like, do I want kids again? Because that was, if I have another miscarriage, like that was so painful, that was so hard, and it would be very terrified of like having to experience that pain again for nothing, and then so that was kind of the second way of how my vagina tried to kill me. And then the third thing was going in for a routine pap smear and having my results come back abnormal, and then finding out I had precancerous cells and like HPV on my cervix. And I think it was literally at that point, this happened, I got this done in October of last year, and then I just wanted to scream and was just like, oh my gosh, like why is my vagina trying to kill me? And then that was when I kind of like, I had a light bulb kind of turn on and stuff. And then I started writing the show pretty quickly after that. But it's like, the show is kind of a big deal for me because even though I've had herpes for like 10 years now, I've been very ashamed to talk about it publicly. Like it's one of the only things that I have not really talked about on stage, because like, I don't know how people are going to perceive me as going forward. I don't know like how the other comedians are going to talk about me and everything. And, if they're going to be like, oh, she's, nobody date her, nobody sleep with her or anything, because she has herpes. But the only people that I've really ever known have been like a very small handful of like my close friends. And then of course, like the people that I am like seriously dating and like thinking of having like intimate relationships with and stuff are like kind of the only people I like would disclose to and stuff. And it's also like difficult because like herpes doesn't work the same way in everybody the same. Like I've had it for 10 years. I've only had one outbreak ever, and that was the first time I've ever had it. And my doctor actually recently told me, because anytime I have like a pimple down there or something, it's like, I think this is an outbreak. And then I'll go see the doctors, and then they'll be like, this is just an ingrown hair and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, but so it's not herpes. They're like, it's not herpes. You would usually have like a fever and like all these like other, like symptoms if you are having an outbreak, and you don't have any of this. And then they were like, if you haven't had an outbreak in 10 years, then you're probably not going to have another outbreak again. And like, I've never like people think it's like also very easy to pass, and maybe, you know, for some people maybe, you know, it is true, especially if you're having an outbreak right now. But I was with my ex-husband for 8 years, like,
Right.
and he got tested after we, you know, broke up, and he didn't get it. And like nobody I've ever been with has gotten it. And I was also still able, like when I was talking to my doctor, like I thought I was going to have to get like a C-section or something. And when I was pregnant, and they were like, no, if you're not having an outbreak, then it should be perfectly okay and normal for you to have like a vaginal birth. And so I think there's just like a lot of misconceptions with like having herpes. Like it honestly, besides the fact that like I will get rejected by other people I'm trying to date and stuff like that, like it hasn't physically affected my life at all, to the point that I sometimes forget I even have it, because I feel like a normal girl, like just like walking around in this world without. But at the same time, it's like you still have this like incurable disease, but it doesn't, like it truly doesn't really affect your life, maybe unless if you have like an autoimmune disease or something like that. But like I think it's laid dormant in me for so many years now and stuff, and it's just like, but you still have the stigma. You still have the stigma of being dirty, and you still have the stigma of like being this slut that like deserved to have gotten it and stuff, which is why I do start off my show with saying like I got this from my like the third ever person I like slept with and stuff. And you know, I wasn't like this crazy person, and even if I was, doesn't mean that anybody deserves to get herpes anyway and stuff. And you know, people will get it in like so many other, like people could get it from their moms, parents, like really early on, and there's just like so many ways that you could also get it. And the stigma, is harder than the actual disease itself. So that's one of the reasons why I am trying to like openly talk about it now, because I think for people that also have herpes, and I think like hear my story, I feel like it provides some levity and some hope like to other people. And I also think like being able to talk about it more openly helps to have like healthier conversations surrounding this topic, so it's not this like secret thing that no one really knows about and stuff. But you know, it really depends. Like I've had people that I've dated that were really hesitant, and I would like tell them more information about it, and then they would be okay, but then they would like try to do their own research and reading stuff on, you know, from the CDC. And of course, like the CDC has to like say like you could still transmit herpes even if you're not having an outbreak, because you could be asymptomatic and all this stuff, because they kind of have to. They have to say stuff like that. Otherwise, because you can't just, you know, give out false information like, oh, this can't, you know, because it has happened. It has happened with people who are asymptomatic and everything. But it's also like I have a 10-year track record of never passing it to anybody and stuff. And then so, you know, I think that you also have to take stuff like that into consideration. And there are also medications that also suppress the disease and everything. And I personally think the reason why they're not trying to come up with like a vaccine, or well, I mean, they are trying to come up with a vaccine, but they're not like rushing it like they were with like, a COVID vaccine or anything, because this isn't life-threatening to anybody, you know, and it's not like HIV, which they actually have very good medications now that can keep you alive and keep it so you never pass it to anybody and everything. They don't have that yet because HIV was actually killing people and stuff. So it's something for like herpes is not, you just get some bumps down there. And a lot of people actually have HSV1, which is the herpes on the mouth, the holes on the mouth. Like millions of people have that. And for some reason, like that is okay. And
I know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to a friend that also has herpes, and she was like, we both have the genital herpes, not the
Yeah.
HSV1 type. And she was telling me, she was like, I actually feel like really lucky that I don't have that type, because like, think about like, you have to like disclose even just kissing somebody
Yes,
or
yeah.
whatever. But in this culture, like nobody even discloses
Yeah.
like that, because you don't think of anything when you get the cold sore, but it's literally the same thing that happens down there, but it's just like seen as so much worse. So it is kind of
Definitely.
like a double standard. And yeah, it makes it very, very hard to date and everything. But I've been very lucky that I found really good people. So I also call that out to, let people know that there's hope,
Yeah,
there
definitely.
and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's great for you to be openly talking about it, because thinking about it, like, I mean, this is the most I've ever learned about it, other than I knew it was the cold sore thing, which again, crazy, because nobody's like, people don't talk in hushed tones like, oh, did you hear they got cold sore on their upper lip?
Right. Yeah.
But like, other than that, like, I vaguely knew it was an STD, and I think the only cases I'd heard of either of them being used consistently were either in like high school with people throwing them around as like jokes,
Yeah.
or in like, I think especially in America,
Yes.
what little is taught about STDs often seems to come across as like they're this sort of punishment. Like, this is what happens if you have too much sex. So
Yes. Yes.
if you have it, then therefore, you deserve to, which is an insane thing to say.
Right. Absolutely. And it's also not helpful when herpes and like STDs are made the punchline of jokes all
Yeah.
the time. It's like made as an insult to somebody. And yeah, it even sometimes like I'm still like, I think it was so hard to come out publicly and say like, well, I have herpes or something, because like even people that I'm close to will talk about like herpes like it's the most disgusting thing,
Yeah.
that they can't imagine ever like being with anybody with it. I'm in some like dating groups on Facebook where it's like all women trying to share like, oh, don't date this guy because he has herpes.
Right.
And like whatever. Or they will talk about like, hey, I have herpes, and then other people will make really rude comments underneath that and be like, well, don't date this guy because you should protect your health, or don't do this. And there's a few people that are always like, it's very brave that he came forward and said
Yeah.
this to you, because it's hard. It's a very hard conversation to have with like a partner, especially if it's like with somebody that you really like and wanted it to
Yeah.
work out with and stuff. And the only thing basically coming between you guys is the fact that you have herpes. Like, it's very hurtful
Yeah.
and painful to have to like, go through that. And, I can't even like tell you how many times I've gotten rejected. And it's like, even though I've had it for 10 years now, it still hurts every time getting a rejection. And it like keeps me up at night. Like, if I know like I have to disclose to somebody eventually, like I'll just like stay up all night,
Yeah.
like thinking, like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to present this? Like, do I give the whole history of like, I got this from my third ever boyfriend,
Right.
and
Yeah.
because he was doing this, and also like, so because I have to build up this story that I'm not some slut, and then I have to like
Yeah.
go into like, I've never passed it to anyone, so I'm safe. And like, do I have to do this whole spiel every time? And it took me like it took me many years to even come up with like a spiel for this,
Right.
and it just like sucks that you even have to do
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
But again, that's what's great about your show, because for everyone who has something like this, to be constantly going through that over and over, to go through the stress of like opening up about, I mean, obviously, like you said, it's an important thing to talk about, but also I don't know, it shouldn't be this thing of almost like feeling like you have to own up about something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it putting together this show when you're talking about things like this and the miscarriage and the precancerous cells and stuff?
Yeah.
Was it like mostly cathartic? Was it okay to do, or were there moments where it was pretty tough going through things.
There was definitely moments that were pretty tough going through it. I would say like the hardest part about writing this show was really, it's kind of like reliving through the trauma about it. The hardest part, surprisingly, was talking about the miscarriage, because it wasn't just like me that was like personally involved. It was also like my ex-husband that, you know, my story about my miscarriage is kind of like this roller coaster, because I start talking about how I didn't want a baby. I didn't want to be pregnant because it was unplanned. And so that made it really tough when you have so many dreams and you think that like a baby is going to ruin everything. And so I was kind of grappling with the fact that I like really didn't want to be a mother at the time. And then, but on the other hand, my ex-husband was so happy to be having a baby because he had always dreamed of being a father. And then, you know, after being pregnant for like 3 months, like I eventually, you know, warmed up to like, okay, you know what, I could do it all. I could like still do my comedy and acting career, and I could still be a mom and, you know, make everything work and stuff. Like I started getting this like ambition and drive and stuff. And then the miscarriage happened, and it was like very sad because, you know, when you're pregnant, you don't tell anybody for the first 3 months. And then so all of a sudden I like lost this baby, but I couldn't even tell anybody I was even pregnant and stuff, because it was like such a hard thing to talk about. And then I was like, I'm at an age where all my friends are having kids, and I was like really jealous about it. And it was pretty hard writing the material for it, because even as I was like writing out the material, I would find myself just bursting out crying, like writing out the stuff. And then it was really hard for me to memorize my lines for quite some time because of how hard it was to read through the words that I wrote. And it was very emotional, and it took me months to like get my stuff memorized. And, you know, my director kind of helped give me some exercises of how to like approach the material and get to like a safe place in your head that you could like deliver this material in and not feel so much trauma from the stuff. And then so that was also very helpful. Otherwise, like the one time I did the workshopping show and I did kind of talk about the miscarriage, like I started just bursting out crying on stage. And I think honestly it added to the show, but also something that I don't know if, like, I think it would be very tough to be crying every single night of the Fringe of doing the show and everything. But yeah, it was definitely really tough writing through this material, and then like even going through like the suicide scenes and stuff like that. Which it's not like this very vivid thing that I'm painting and stuff for the suicide scene. But it was like really hard, like kind of talking about any of that stuff and just revisiting all of it too, because it was just like, it would always bring up a lot of trauma. And I, like, as much as I want to be able to like really freely, openly talk about it, I also don't want to become numb to my trauma and like be on autopilot for my show. Like I want to really connect with my material as an actor when I am performing, and I want to be able to do that every night. So, you know, there is a part of me that's like, I guess if I have to relive this trauma for good reviews and butts and seats, then that's what I got to do, I guess. But I'm trying. So to answer your question, yes, it was very hard to write through this stuff.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then how did you balance it with, because obviously it's, I mean, I think you said not specifically stand-up necessarily, like kind of comedic solo theater almost.
Yes. So I balance it by putting in jokes throughout. I mean, when it comes to like more of the serious stuff, like there might not necessarily be like a joke in there, but like leading up to it, there might be jokes before, there might be jokes after. And I think that like provides a break for people from kind of the raw storytelling that I'm doing. So like one of my jokes that I do about my miscarriage is about how after I had my miscarriage, my doctor called me and told me that she knows that I lost the baby, but if I would like to know the sex of the baby anyway. Right. And my response was, wow, this feels like the worst gender reveal I've ever been a part of. And then, so she, because I was far enough along that I could get the gender tested. And then the other part of the joke is that, you know, she tells me that it was going to be a boy, but we were actually really hoping for a girl. So, guess, you know, no harm, no foul. And, you know, and then I've been like adding this like tag about like, you know, because we would have aborted that like baby if it was a boy anyway. And then so just like something like that. And it's like hit or miss because sometimes I go and I'm in so deep in this story and then I'm trying to like do this joke. Right. And then people are just like, we don't know how to feel about like, should we be laughing or, you know, something like that. But that's just like one of the examples of the things that I try to do to like bring a little bit of levity into the show. And that's also what I mean by, you know, my humor is a little dark sometimes and stuff. So, yeah.
That's really good. I mean, I think it's worth, I'm conscious we're running towards the end now as well. Yeah. But I wanted to bring up in the part that didn't get recorded, you mentioned that you've done a couple of preview shows so far. I think you said you had 2 more to go. And yeah, I just thought it'd be great for you to mention the reaction you had to those because it was pretty incredible from what you said.
Yeah. So one of the preview shows that I did in San Antonio, one of the people that worked at the theater afterwards, so just going back a little bit more, I was terrified of doing my show in San Antonio because I was only doing the herpes part, like the segment. And then in San Antonio is, I mean, it's like, depending on which parts is like pretty liberal, but it's more conservative than for example. And then, so I wasn't sure how my material was going to land there. And if people were going to think I was disgusting and I shouldn't even be on stage saying these things. And I had so many people afterwards come up to me and like give me hugs and tell me that like, one guy told me like, you know, my daughter has herpes and she also went through like all this fear and trauma and, you know, stigma about it. And she would have loved to see this show because I think it would have, you know, helped her. And then I had this other guy that I didn't know but worked at the theater message me. And he said that he had dated previous partners with herpes and that he knew how much it weighed heavily on them having it. Yeah. And it weighed heavily on him too for being somebody that was in love with somebody that had herpes. And he felt like when he heard my show, it like gave him hope and also gave like a certain like healing for him. And he wishes that his partners, like previous partners, like would have been able to see my show because he felt like it would provide healing for them as well. And then he told me that in the 5 years that he has been working at the theater, the material that I presented was probably the most important thing they've ever seen on their stage.
God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was like really heartwarming to hear. And then even my preview shows in Austin, like I think there was like 3 women that came up to me crying afterwards, like after my show, because it was like so like either sad or impactful for them and stuff. And I was surprised, like I didn't think my show could like bring up those kinds of emotions to other people. And, you know, I've also had like friends who have seen my comedy evolve over the past like 10 years in Austin tell me that this is probably the best piece of work that I have created so far,
Right,
because
wow.
this is finally me like telling my truth, like speaking out about things that like really matter to me and stuff. And it feels like this project is finally something that has finally merged like my lived experiences and my stand up together. And it's almost as if this was like a long time coming for me to put something like this finally together. And I think this is like my most authentic, most raw piece of work that I've ever created, honestly. So,
Right. That's fantastic. That's really, I mean, I'm very excited to come and see it.
yeah.
So now is generally where I'd slot in like a little sample of your work.
I guess something that's like pretty quick is I have like a little piece in there about how it is hard like dating with herpes and trying to like talk to people about it and stuff. And that, you know, I had one time I was dating this guy who was a doctor and told me that he was okay with me having herpes. It wasn't a big deal to him because he, you know, sees this kind of all the time, and told me that if he used a condom with me, the chances of him getting herpes from me were so low that he had a higher chance of dying in a plane crash than contracting herpes from me. And I was like, wow, surprisingly, being compared to a plane crash is much better. And so that was kind of a little bit of that, but it was kind of something that I just thought was so weird to say and be compared to and stuff. And then so yeah.
So yeah, that was really good. That was really funny. I haven't heard it yet, but I have faith in it based on what you said. It sounds good.
Okay.
And yeah, just for in terms of plugs, which obviously spoken a lot about the show in general, but are there specific times and dates you'd like to say, or other things you'd like people to go and look at?
Yeah, I will be at Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yes.
Not Edinburgh, Edinburgh Fringe for the entire run of August. So I'll be starting my shows on August 2nd and then ending it August 24th with no show on the 11th. And it's at 8 p.m., which is 2000 in like this other frame metric thing. So
that's good. I like the use of military timing. That's great.
Military timing. Yes, that's what I was trying to say. So yeah.
But yeah, perfect. And I'll drop all that in the show notes as well.
Okay.
And yeah, great. Everybody go see that. I'm planning to go and see it. I'm excited for it. This has been a great convo. Honestly, I'm sorry I can't steal you for longer because there's so much more I'd like to dig into. But yeah, this has been great. I've been Patrick, but I guess it's been Yola Lou. I'll see you guys next week, and I'm assuming you won't. But was one of your shows next week?
It is in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Yeah.
So yeah, in 2 weeks. And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the show. You can find the show on Instagram at NeversFunny, all one word, all lowercase. Also other places too. Check the link tree. I don't know, what do I look like, a director? Oh yeah, the music in the intro and outro is There It Is by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. I'm not going to do the whole thing. He's not listening. I don't care. The guest next week's Nick Schiller. He's a comedian. He's deadpan. He's really funny. Go listen to it.